Hey, welcome to week 3 of Marriage Mixtape. I'm so glad you guys are all together here this week. We kind of start off the series saying, man, if you're single, if you're married, that's healthy in a group like this. You're learning from each other, you're encouraging one another. And just want to remind you singles, if you're in the group here this week, we have the special singles night, Becoming Mr. or Mrs. Right. So I want you to make sure you get online. Don't forget to do that. I would love to see you there. I'm looking forward to spending some time that evening with all the singles in our church, and Adrian and I just kind of spending some time pouring into you guys. So you guys started off today with the question, have you ever said something you didn't mean to say? And what trouble did it cause? Now, I'm sure there were some things said that were hilarious, some very embarrassing things, maybe some vulnerable things, some painful things. Hopefully you guys are still together as a small group. Hopefully no one left during that first question there, a spouse got offended or anything. But this is a safe place so we can ask tough questions like that. Have you ever said anything to someone you didn't mean to say? I've done that a ton of times. What you're trying to say as a compliment doesn't come out as a compliment, or you're trying to, correct a situation. It just, it was a little too harsh. It wasn't loving, and it just, caused some relational conflict, caused some pain and some suffering that you didn't really mean to do. And today what we're doing, and the reason why we start off with that is because this week we're focusing on sharing our true feelings. See, many of the fights in our relationships, and our marriages specifically, but just relationships in general, are caused because we don't. We don't feel vulnerable. We don't feel like we can share our true feelings. You see, trust and communication is kind of the theme this week. And at this point, we're getting to kind of the tough issues here. And this is a core issue in marriages, trust and communication. When people come into the church office and sit down with myself or one of the other pastors because their marriage is in crisis, it comes back so many times to these two issues. Man, I don't feel like my spouse trusts me, or I don't trust my spouse. We don't communicate. I don't know what's going on. So although we're not going to be able to solve all of those problems this week, it took you maybe years to get into the situation you're at right now. You can't fix it in an hour here. But hopefully in this point, we can do that turn, right? I kicked off the series talking from Revelation chapter 2, when God is talking to the church in Ephesus. And he says, you've lost your first love. I want you to come back, that we need to remember what things were like. We need to repent of the bad things that we've done, and we need to return to those things, return to the good things in our life. So maybe tonight's the point where you can do that turn. You can do that repent and say, okay, we're going to make a pivot here. We're not back to full health, but we're making some progress. So we're going to look at a passage from Ephesians 4, two passages, verse 2, which we've already talked about, but in a little bit of a different context. I know we keep going back to this, but Ephesians is all about relationships. It's about how we're supposed to relate to each other. So it's just jam-packed full of great information on marriages, but relationships in general. And we're going to take some time on explaining it, and then you guys are going to talk it out. So Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2 says this: "Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love." And then we're going to skip ahead a bit to verse 15. It says, "Instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church." So we're supposed to speak not just the truth, but truth in love. So often it's often easy to speak the truth. Just, hey, this is what's going on. These are the facts. I say it's easy. It's easy for the words to come out. It's just not easy to deal with the ramifications. That there's feelings involved. There's sensitivity. And that sometimes the truth hurts, right? The truth hurts. That's a phrase that we say. And people don't often want to hear what is true. But if we're to be in a good relationship with our spouse or with anyone, we have to say things that are true. We have to tell the tough things. That extra 10% that you want to hold back from the story, that you want to hold back from the discussion because, it's just too painful to tell it. We have to be able to say those things. But the way that we do it is in love. And this is why trust is so important. Is that when we have trust, we build up trust in a loving relationship. When that trust is broken, it damages so many components of it. It damages this ability to speak truth and love because we don't really believe that the person loves us, right? If that trust is broken, well then that love is broken, and I can't believe the words that are coming out of your mouth. I don't believe that the love part of it. We have to nurture this. We have to care for this. We have to make sure that trust stays firm in our relationships so that we can speak the truth in love. Otherwise, communication breaks down. You know, this truth and love, the greatest example of this is Jesus. Jesus embodied this over and over again in his ministry. When he met the woman at the well, it was an incredible, loving conversation. The way that he addressed her, the way that he spoke to her, the way he delivered words of hope into her life. But he didn't skirt away from the issues that were going on, from the ways that she was struggling. You know, famously he says, hey, you're not married right now, but you've been married many times in the past and you're living with a guy right now. He didn't skirt away from the truth, but he said it in a way that showed, I have your best interest in mind. I care about you. The woman caught in adultery. Jesus, bends down and, talks to her in a loving, caring way. It doesn't address, doesn't say what she did is fine, doesn't excuse her actions, but speaks hope and love into her. Zacchaeus, over and over and over again, Jesus speaks truth in love. And those are the things that we're going to focus in on today. How do we have good communication? How do we speak hope and love into each other's lives? If you want trust, if you want good communication, you have to learn this skill. You have to learn to build this trust up. And that's where your discussion is going to fall today. Now, I realize that this might be a hot topic. I realize that not everyone's coming in with a tank full of trust, where communication is a great thing. So this is something that's building up. So there might be some raw edges, some raw nerves, some sensitive situations. And I would ask all of you guys to just kind of affirm each other before you go into this discussion. Hey, this is a safe place. We've got each other's backs. We love each other here, but we want to all take positive steps forward in our relationships. So we're going to support each other, pray for each other, just as I am praying for you. Hey, we've got one more week in this series. Next week, week 4 of Marriage Mixtape. I hope you guys make sure you guys come back again and just do what God has called us to, meet together, bear one another's burdens, and be back for week 4 of Marriage Mixtape.